Welcome back to Beauty Marks Podcast, a space where we embrace our marks acquired through our journey. My name is Elizabeth Savillon, and welcome to another episode of this podcast. I hope that you are having a great week so far. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to this podcast, leave a review, and let me know what kind of episodes you're loving, what you would love to hear more about. And today's episode, I am doing it from my home little office. And I'm very excited to have Dr. Christie on. She's actually a relationship expert, and so she worked with Match.com and eHarmony, creating matches and just helping people navigate the dating world, dating in 2023, tips on how to online date and transition to a real life date, and then what makes someone a perfect match. And so I am so grateful for the conversation. And so let's just get right into it. Welcome to Beauty Marks Podcast.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
What is something that you're very passionate about?
Yeah, I think when it comes to just like dating and relationships, I'm really passionate about helping women specifically that were like me, had so many things going for them in life, great friendships, great community, jobs that they loved, but this one area just kind of did not translate into. So I think my passion there lies in really helping these women thrive and really kind of create that life that they love with a partner. And part of that is kind of coming against the narrative of, oh, do it all yourself and you don't need anyone and don't want relationships. Like I firmly believe we're built for relationships. So if you desire to have that partner, I want that to be like as normal and great of a thing as desiring anything else. So I think a lot of my passion comes from my own experiences and wanting people to have that same result, but then also not feeling like they can't desire what they want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the narrative a lot is like, yes, you should be like, go after your dreams, but it's like, there are some people that can still have successful lives and full lives with a partner. And I think ultimately it is like, both can coexist, and, you can be independent, you can be,
Yes.
just successful in what you're doing. And so can you share a little bit about how you found your partner and kind of your story, which I see resonates a lot with the work that you do?
Yeah. So we actually met in Vacation Bible School when we were kids. So I met him when I was 5 and he was 11 because he's 5 to 6 years older than me. And the only reason we know that we met then was because that's where our moms met in the like parent version of that. And so we were kind of in the same community, same crowd. We both went away for college. He moved down to San Diego, which is about 2 hours away from LA, for those that don't know. And I went to USC. And then when we both kind of came back and moved to our hometowns, we connected, I guess I will say, on a dating app on Bumble. And then we met here. I was writing my dissertation in a coffee shop, like right down the street. So I always share that part of my story because we probably ran into each other or like just walked by each other every day. I mean, we were within like a 3-mile radius of each other. But we never connected in that way because I believe, I met my husband now 4 years ago, but I really believe that people aren't approaching how maybe they used to in our parents' generation. Like you would just kind of meet someone somewhere and start a conversation and it would lead to something. And nowadays, I think, we don't have that much time. We're always attached to our phones, working or doing things, or we just feel like awkward approaching people because that's not something that happens, which I feel like it should. But in any case, I always share that because it was like we were right in front of each other's noses, and we had this history of our families knowing each other in different ways, and even going to the same church growing up, but we never connected. So the dating app really kind of put him in front of me, and then we connected in that way.
Wow, that's beautiful. So you guys reconnected through Bumble.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, I think it's true. Like, I think traditional, and you posted about it, like dating in a modern world when you have like traditional views on things. Cause like, I feel like ideally everybody wants to meet someone like how our parents did, like through mutual people, or like you guys went to school, or like meeting in person. But in modern times in 2023, it's like people are dating differently, and like apps and there's so many other ways that people are meeting, and a lot of people are meeting that way. So
Yeah.
how are you seeing that work out with 2023 like online dating? Because I know you have experience with like Match and eHarmony. And so how like what do you see is like today's like normal or trends?
Yeah. So in my own experience working for the dating apps, working as a professional matchmaker, that was a way that a lot of people wanted to have more of a traditional, like you introduce me to my person because you know both of us. So it's almost like a friend meeting, but more of like a hired
Mhm.
friend introducing you. But I would say, because of the pandemic, online dating ended up surpassing meeting through friends as the number one way to meet people. So online dating became the way that people are connecting
Mhm.
post pandemic. I think it was on the rise before that, but now it's even more common. And I think that a lot of times people that have more traditional views kind of want that story, want that like beautiful, oh, meet cute in a coffee shop. And he saw me, we were reading the same book, this like Hallmark movie, which is beautiful. And I love when that happens. And I think don't get caught up so much in that story and focus more on finding a good partner and relationship. A lot of times people that want to meet what I call out in the wild aren't finding someone that's quite exactly the fit that they're looking for compatibility wise. So online dating really gives you more education about somebody before you invest that time and energy in meeting them. So I'm a big proponent of it. Obviously, we teach our clients how to meet in various ways, but I definitely don't recommend only trying to date out in the wild. I recommend kind of both because it is so common nowadays. You don't want to block any kind of way that you can find love.
Yeah, I love that you say that because I think it's like normalizing it. I'm new to the dating apps and I joined this year. And so I've been on Upward, Hinge, and Bumble. For me, Hinge has been like the one that I've been able to like connect more and like meet people in real life and like have had a good experience so far. So when it comes to like your profile, would you share a lot of tips, and I will talk about adding you and like making sure that people tune into like your weekly and daily encouragement. But what tips do you see, or like what do you see a lot of like mistakes that people make when it comes to dating apps, and what do you recommend as like essentials that you need to remember when you're on a dating app?
Yeah, and I love you sharing kind of how you're meeting people. I think a lot of people ask me, what's the best dating app for you?
Mhm.
And we have a free quiz. I'll have you have the links in the show notes to discovering which app is best for you. But the short and long answer is it really depends. It depends on who you are, what you're looking for, and where you're located. So sometimes people will tell me, I'm on this dating app and I don't get a match within my distance of like 100 miles. So then you need to really change your approach, right? Versus if someone else is on that same app in a big city, they're seeing more people closer to them in proximity. So it's really about seeing the dating app as a tool, and how you use the tool depends on the result that you get. So the analogy I always use, and I'll play off of the name of your podcast and brand of Inner Beauty, but when you think really about like outer beauty and makeup and those tools, we can all go buy the same makeup things at Sephora, the same high end. We can buy all the brushes and the paint and whatever foundation, but the way that we apply it is what makes the difference. So Jennifer Lopez's makeup artist knows how to apply these things really beautifully on her, where
Mhm.
I could have the same things, and because I don't have the training, I don't have the knowledge, I don't have the background, it doesn't look the same, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same with dating apps. You really have to empower yourself, and that's really why I teach kind of how to use the tool, because people will try it and say, oh, it's not working for me, but they're not implementing it in the right way. So it's more about what they're doing that's not working rather than the tool itself. And it's the same with makeup. If I went and bought like $100 Dior foundation and
Mhm.
didn't know how to apply it, I'd be like, oh, this isn't working, I'm going to throw it out. Well, but whereas someone who knew how to apply it, it worked for them. So it's
Mhm.
really, that's why I kind of come in defense of dating apps almost, because I'm like, they're not all bad. It's not all a mess out there. It's all about how to use the tool. So that's kind of the first thing I'll say, getting on the right app. The second piece of that is kind of what you put out there and your criteria. So being really clear, like what's really important to you, creating your criteria off of that. So in your own filters, being like, okay, it's really important that they're in this distance, or it's really important they have this faith background, and only choosing like 1 to 2 things so that you're not overwhelming the system and limiting it too much. And then it's what's on your profile. So what I say is you want to reverse engineer your profile. Think about the type of person you want to attract. What type of profile would they be attracted to? What would you say on that profile? So let's say you want to attract someone, of a certain faith background, like they're a Christian. Then what kind of profile are they looking for? We got to talk about we're a Christian, or this is important to us, or whatever, both in your photos and what you talk about. So always think in that way. Don't just say, oh, my girlfriends think this picture's cute. Like think about, put on the lens of who you're trying to attract, and what type of attention you're not trying to attract, and create your profile off of that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Because I mean, even when I see it, and I don't like, I know my friends have showed me their profiles as like a guide, like, okay, this like the things, but I also like ask my friends, like, how do you see me? And like, what are the things that I should highlight? Because I feel like we kind of get stuck. And you made a live yesterday, you were talking about like a cover letter versus a resume.
Exactly.
Like, it's like, I can come off very like strong. Okay, like, let me just like list out all the criterias, but it's more of like kind of like, this is me, and like gives them curiosity, or like how you said, kind of a target for someone that may be a better match versus things that maybe I think would be on
Exactly. Yeah. And most of the time, you're not alone. I love our girl squads and our group chats and all of that. It's amazing. But most of the feedback we're getting are from other girls. So it's like, they're not quite the target audience of who you want to be swiping for you, and how you want them to be seen. Like you're not trying to audition for, getting a girlfriend, or a friend. You're trying to find someone who sees you as a future spouse. So that's really important to think about. And that's really kind of what we do, and based on our experience, kind of help people with on that end.
Yeah. I know even like when I was looking for like on the guy side, I would see it felt like they were looking for a friend, like someone to go like hunting with them, someone to go. And I'm like, that is interesting. I know that some people are like would be willing to go, but it's like, it's kind of like how you said, it's more of a friend. So definitely having that in mind. So what are things that would maybe attract the wrong person? Like how people say like, okay, I keep attracting the same kind of guys, or like maybe it's not working. Like what would you recommend for that person?
Yeah, and maybe somewhat controversial. I've said this before, but I really think the type of photos that you're putting is what's attracting the wrong energy. So, I love cute outfits. I love, wear what you want. This is great. Makeup, amazing. I'm all about that. But when you're looking at your dating profile and you're saying, I keep attracting guys that want a casual fling, or just are commenting on my body or my looks or whatever. And then we got to really look at your photos and say, you don't have to dress like a nun or anything, but like what type of photos are you sharing? Like, are you sharing your night out with your girlfriends at a club and you're wearing like a club outfit? That's automatically going somewhere in the person's mind that's looking for you, versus maybe you're traveling or you're doing, something else. You can still look really cute, but I think that piece is really overlooked. And obviously, I get feedback like, oh, I should be able to wear what I want 100%. But you also have to know that on the dating apps, there is that connotation for a lot of people that it's casual. So if there are certain photos that you're putting out, even like, outside of body photos, like filters, I love a good filter, especially when I don't want to put makeup on, but things like photos like that, they're not giving an accurate representation of you and what you look like. You want people to fall in love with who you are on the inside, and not just on the outside. And when we're kind of putting our best foot forward, I'll say this to a lot of women too, like, you have this amazing photo where you got your makeup done or whatever, that's great to put there. But if you don't look like that every day, don't have that false representation just because it's a great photo of you. And people will say, oh, well, I don't have good photos. I highly recommend, a friend that has a good camera, or even just like an iPhone, take some specific photos for your dating profile. This is very important because photos are the number one thing that people look at and decide whether to swipe. a lot of times, especially men, they don't really even read a lot of the prompts. So your photos are telling a story about you. You want to be very intentional about what they say.
Mm-hmm. And that's a good point, because I feel like a lot of people, what they think about the apps is like, well, it's not fair because they're just looking at like, their visuals. So like they're just looking at your photo, like they're not even reading the rest of the stuff. So
Sure.
for someone that's like, is it even worth putting that much time if they're just going to be looking for appearance? Or maybe the thought of all the prettier girls are going to get more attention versus, like those kind of thoughts or statements that people make about them. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, the type of person, the guy that you're looking for is going to be looking for you, is what I always say. So if they're going to be attracted to the prettier or whatever your story is about that, then they're not your person. So you just want, ultimately, you're only looking for one. So it's okay if you're not getting thousands of matches and messages. We're not on dating apps to get attention or validation from people. We're trying to find our person. So that is really what you want to look at ultimately, and think about what story your photos are sharing. So I'll share from my own example on my dating profile. There were a few things I really wanted to communicate. So one photo I had was at Stagecoach. It's a country music festival here in California. So I had the picture at the cowboy boots that kind of communicated to people that these are more of like the type of music that I listen to, as well as some of my values kind of reflected in that. So even if they didn't read what my values were or what my, political preference or whatever, they could kind of maybe make an assumption, oh, this is the type of person she is. Another piece that was important to me is my cultural background is Armenian. So I had a photo of myself at there's a march every year that commemorates the Armenian people and genocide. And so I had a photo there. And so that kind of communicated, hey, like this is important to me too. So you can kind of, through your photos, even if they don't read the specifics, say, oh, okay. And that was one thing that connected my husband with me, was the cowboy boot, like country music. He drives a truck and he's very like that. And he felt like, oh, that's so awesome. And then also he's Armenian. So like that connected as well. So it's like, I didn't even have to say that explicitly. I was able to communicate that through my photos. So think about, okay, what are some events or things that I've gone to, taken photos at, things I'm doing that will communicate something deeper about me, and use those types of photos. So if it's like, you love volunteering or traveling or whatever, time with friends and family, like have your stories say what you would ideally like to communicate in words.
I love that tip, because I think that people want to like write out paragraphs, but it's sometimes better through the pictures.
Exactly.
And thinking about how that person is receiving that picture and like what that says about you. So
Totally.
I love that. And how about the conversation to eventually meet? Because I know that some people are like, okay, the conversations are always like, how are you? Or like, how's your day? Or like, how can you get like deeper into then transitioning over to a date?
Yeah. So what we teach in to our clients is what I call the 5 messages to meet method. So basically what I recommend is that you don't get caught in these long conversations over the messages. Basically what you want to do is narrow down, okay, this thing is really important to me, like wants kids or wants marriage or whatever. You want to filter those things out on the back end so that you're not getting profiles of people that don't want kids, for example. Then in the messages, if there's any question about, who they are, their values, whatever, you want to kind of get to the heart of that pretty quickly. So I use this example a lot with people of faith backgrounds that I work with a lot. But, if they say that they're Christian, like on the drop down, but you don't really know because they haven't explained more about that, then you can swipe right. Maybe you match, they look like a great fit. And the messages, you can say something like, hey, like I saw that you said you're a Christian. What does that look like for you? So you're choosing one question to ask that is going to determine whether you want a first date or not with them. And a first date can be a quick FaceTime chat, which we usually recommend as well, or an actual date, but you want that clarity right off the bat. So you don't want to kind of be like, oh, I don't really know what they mean by that. I'll go on a date and see. That is not what you want, because if that's number one for you, you don't want to waste your time if on the date you start talking about your faith and like, do they go to church? And it's really important for you that they do, but this person doesn't. So that then you wasted your time, your energy, you're discouraged, and it goes back into the cycle. So clarify in the messages and then just kind of transition. So we have also templates in our programs of like how to transition. But one example is saying something like, I don't check this app too much. On the weekends, I'd love to just schedule a coffee next week, or I'm having a really busy work week. So I don't have time to respond, but I'd love to kind of grab coffee. Or if they start asking deeper questions, be like, that's a great question. Love to share more, but it's a lot to type. Like maybe we can do a quick FaceTime, that sort of thing. So you don't want to get in these long, things, because what happens is you start getting emotionally invested before you've even met somebody. If you have these long heart to heart text threads, and to be honest, that's how the Tinder swindlers get through. They connect via text and you don't really know who they are. And then you meet them and then all of a sudden, it's not a fit. So you really want to get in front of the person or on a FaceTime pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's a good reminder, because I feel like, it can easily get that way. And then we kind of feel like they're like, wow, they're asking deep questions, but it's like, it's been like 5 days, it's been 2 weeks, and it's like, it's not going anywhere. I definitely started taking that approach. And I got to meet people like quicker, and actually like kind of vet them out better. I love the question that you said about what is Christianity, or what is being a Christian look like to you, because that has always been very interesting, the responses. Because a lot of people put themselves like, oh yeah, I'm a Christian, and it's like, well, what I'm looking for is this, this, and this, what that means. And so even for someone maybe that's casual versus relationship, because when I actually took the quiz that you have, and so it actually told me to get on Match.com.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool.
I was like, okay, so
and that's one you're not using, right?
That's not what I'm using. So like, how would you say, like, you categorize that for someone that's like, okay, like I want to be in a relationship, but I'm still kind of figuring out what that looks like to me. So is that, would I be considered a casual dater, or is it more that I'm ready for a relationship?
Yeah. So most of the time, if you got like that, it was one of the web-based apps, Match.com, eHarmony, that's an indicator that you're like looking for something deeper, and that conversation, emotional connection, knowing as much as possible about someone is important for you to be secure. So we created that quiz based on your personality type, your attachment type. And so that kind of indicates that some of these quick swiping isn't giving you enough information for you to feel like, okay, I want to kind of continue. So typically on like an eHarmony or a Match, people are writing a lot more than they might on a Bumble or Hinge. It doesn't mean that people on Bumble or Hinge aren't looking for a serious relationship. It just means that you're going to have to do a little bit deeper digging in order to figure that out. So a Match might just give you a lot of info about them right off the bat, versus on Bumble, you're going to have to maybe ask a few more questions and do a little bit more work to discover if they are, what you're looking for. But a lot of that, I would say, happens on the messages. If you're still unsure, try to hop on a FaceTime before you're investing that time and energy in a first date, because I feel like that's what really causes a lot of burnout and discouragement, is when they get to the first date and they're like, oh, this person isn't what I'm looking for, but we could have figured that out earlier on and not wasted that time, energy, makeup, going on
the whole night out. And so you're really big on like kind of vetting out way before the first date. I know some people are like, no, go on as many dates as possible.
Totally. Yeah. A lot of people will say that, but I'm a big proponent. Quantity is not better than quality here. Like, you really want to make sure you're going on quality dates. So if you're not getting a million matches, that's okay. But if you're getting a few and they are like a really good fit, because think about your time. I'm all about saving successful women that have so much going on in their life time. So it's like, if we had a free night, a lot of us are so busy. I felt like this when I was single. If I had a free night, I would not want to waste it on some stranger for experience, quote unquote. Like, I want to spend it with my family. I want to do something I love. I want to fill my own cup because I'm so overwhelmed. I want to spend a quality night with someone that could actually be a good potential. I don't need experience or practice with people that aren't a good fit. So I usually, what we recommend our clients do is kind of we have like a dating calendar. So it's like one night a week you reserve for actually going on a date. And then if you don't have a date that week, that's okay. You can take yourself on a date or whatever. But just kind of spending some intentional time, but not letting it overwhelm your life. I have so many women come to me that are like going on a date every night. Think about how you're showing showing up. If you're going on dates, like their business meetings, like you're not showing up as your best self. So you could let someone that could be a great fit, get past you because you're not showing up as your best self, because you're just going on as many dates as possible, hoping something clicks. You really want to focus on how can I show up as the best version of myself on this date, and really reflect and give it a great shot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love how you say that, because yeah, I think in the beginning it was kind of like, okay, like I should, give people a chance. Like I'm new to this, but then I got like very overwhelmed, and I'm like,
Mhm.
ooh, like I need kind of to step back, because I feel like it does discourage you after like you've gone on
Totally.
2 dates, and then you're like, I don't know, and then it's like, how many people do I have to do this with?
Do this with.
So,
Totally. Yeah.
it's like I had to reevaluate how I was dating, and that, because I feel like them showing up like how you want to be seen also, and like the energy that you're bringing.
Yeah.
So when people transition then to a date, and because the thing about dating, I feel like also it's like a lot of people are sometimes scared because they're like, okay, I don't know them, and it's like, how long should I be talking to them to then transition over, so
Yeah.
how do you like help your clients kind of figure that out for themselves, of like, okay, this is a good date, now it's like a second date, and like, because sometimes people are can be dating multiple people, kind of still figuring that out.
Totally. So usually what I recommend is if they are a good fit, and the first date goes generally well. So it's one mistake a lot of people make is they think the first date needs to be like this fireworks and
Mhm.
sparks and whatever, but that's not true. It just needs to go like generally well. It doesn't have to be some crazy chemistry situation. And sometimes that's actually not a good sign. So give it a second date. And then typically in the first few dates, I usually recommend at least like one date a week, and then talking in between. Sometimes it could be like two, but I wouldn't do more than that, because what you don't want to do is kind of rush and get to know someone, spend like every day with them. You only learn about someone's character over a period of time. So someone can show up as the best potential person in the whole wide world in the first 4 weeks and put up that front. And if you're already getting emotionally invested and going on like 50 dates in that time period, you're not going to actually learn. Like, I want to see what they're like 2 months from now. So we
Mhm.
have to space it out to keep those boundaries there, so that you're just kind of keeping the pace slow, and that will prevent you from getting love bombed. So I'll say at least like once a week on a date. And if you talk in between, great. I don't recommend overly talking in between. Really
Mhm.
get to know someone on the dates, rather than these like text message threads of like, oh, tell me about your childhood. Like, no, we'll talk about that
Okay,
in
that.
person. Don't invest so much time and energy in these text messages. Like, we just want to make sure the next date is there. The next date is there. And then over time, you can spend more time connecting. I'm really not a fan of talking over text message at all. My husband and I still don't really like it's phone call, or just when we're in person, like only texts, or like for some photos here and there. But some big mistake I see is like after a first date, or even before a first date, they're just trying to text you like they're already your boyfriend, and they're not. Like, we don't need to see what you ate for lunch. Like, we don't care yet.
You said we don't care yet.
Yeah.
That's so real. No, because I think that that's the messaging sometimes that we get. It's like, then it's like, okay, like good morning, good night, and like all day. And
Yeah.
then you kind of feel like, I'm not committed to this
Yeah.
person.
I'm like, am
I
I
don't
in a
want.
relationship I
Yeah,
didn't
and it
know
feels
yet?
like that. I've had to tell people, and like I remember my friends were like, "That's what every girl wants." I'm like, no, but that's when I'm in a relationship. But like,
Exactly.
especially when I'm meeting someone, I feel like that can be just too much. They're letting me know, and like, like if they're into me, and like, you kind of
Totally.
are clear, but it's like the overwhelm of communication can feel like you're already emotionally invested when there's no like proof to that. So I love that
Exactly.
you say that, because I'm not the only one that thinks that.
Yeah,
Have parents.
exactly. And it's a big hang up, because it's one
Yeah.
of those things that's like, I've been waiting for this my whole life, but waiting for someone to text me all day and talk to them all day. And it feels great, but it's like, they don't even know me like that yet. Like,
Yeah.
why are we in that dynamic already? And that's what creates this feeling of like, I feel like I'm in a relationship, but I'm not yet in a relationship. And you don't want that, because you don't know everything about a person yet. And whether they're a good fit for you or not, any potential red flags, those come out later. So if you're already emotionally invested, they're already kind of in your time and space during your day, kind of being put in your thoughts, then you're going to feel that emotional connection a lot quicker than you should. And you might overlook red flags later on, because you're already connected like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. And so what would you say is what makes someone like a perfect match? Because I think that's what everyone ultimately wants to know or be or find. And I know everybody's different, and so there's no like exact answer, which I know that like you're really big on like
Yeah.
case by case, but just in general.
Yeah, so there are dimensions of compatibility for every person out there. So there's things that I would say you want to look at in regards to your personal values, your personality, as well as like your vision for the future. So in my mind, those three things really have to align for someone to be your perfect match. So they need to have the same values as you, worldview, like how do I view the world? What's important to me? What do I build my life on and around? Like these things need to match.
Mhm.
Second is your personality. And this is a place where they don't need to be exactly the same, but they need to like complement each other in important ways. So a lot of times people will believe like, okay, opposites attract. But really, if you're similar in very important ways, this is what makes relationships last long term. So if you notice like in your personality that you're a lot more energetic and your person you're dating is like not at all, like never wants to go out or whatever, this is going to create a lot of conflict
Mhm.
in the future. So you want to think about, okay, how do we kind of complement each other without being like complete opposites? And
Mhm.
sometimes we're attracted to the opposite because we feel like I want to be more like that, and we think that the fast track to becoming more of how we're not is to marry someone who's different, where the truth is that you really don't want to marry someone so different from you. You want to marry someone who's complements you in important ways, and you can build off of each other's strengths together. And
Mhm.
then the third piece for the perfect match is that they have to have the same vision for the future. So if you are viewing yourself as I'm going to travel the world and, all throughout my life and never be tied down, and they, are a dentist and have a private practice in a city and are tied down, like that does not align at all. So you really have to figure out, what do I want for the future, and does this person align? Same with the kids conversation. Do I want kids? Do they want kids? Like we have to be very clear about these things before we start jumping into relationships, because this is what causes us to be with the wrong people and the relationship's not to work out. So be very clear on those things for yourself, and then you're able to find your perfect match out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think that those are some of the things that when you're younger, you kind of overlook because, you're looking for certain things. But when you get to a place that you're actually looking for a relationship and you're like, I want to find someone and not like waste my time with
Exactly.
all these people, it's like you do have to be honest with yourself first to figure that out for yourself.
Yeah.
So I love how you said that. And so, what is some last maybe encouragement for someone that's dating and that's on the apps and maybe is either feeling discouraged because of what they're seeing, and maybe some tips for that person.
What I would say is really focus on quality, like I mentioned. So, what's one app? Maybe you're on three apps. What's the one, like you said, okay, Hinge is getting me the most people. Okay, let me just focus on that and not try to get overwhelmed by a bunch of different things.
Mhm.
Okay, now I'm going to create a rule for myself that I'm only going to swipe on someone that meets this criteria, or that really excites me, or whatever your thing is. So, you're basically just like not giving up on the dating process, but you're getting a lot more specific, a lot more efficient with the types of dates you're going on. So you're not getting overwhelmed by the process. So, okay, I'm going to really narrow it down to only swiping on these people. Okay, I'm only going to go on a date when they've said this and this. So that's going to make your experience dating so much more positive, and then it's going to keep you in the game long enough. Like what I always say is like, you don't want to quit. Don't give up. If you don't give up, you'll find the right person. But oftentimes people just feel so discouraged because they keep doing all these wrong things and dating the wrong people and all this, so that they end up just feeling like they want to give up. Instead, get very specific, get very strategic, and then you're going to just have even if those dates don't turn out to be your person, you're going to have so much of a better experience because it's aligned with who you are.
Mhm. Like, it's actually good quality days that you can be like,
Mhm.
"Okay, I learned something," like, or
Exactly.
it's getting you closer to that. I
Exactly.
love how you share that, and I know you have, just a lot of resources that you share of helping women find their person. So can you share, like, where people can connect with you?
Yeah, so you can visit my website, therapyfordating.com. I'm sure it'll be in your notes. And we have a free dating quiz that you can have access to, discovering which dating app is right for you. So that's kind of the first place to start. And then we have our group program, Find the One, which is our signature program for women that are looking to find their person. And then we also have opportunities to work individually with us as well. So you can get all that info on the website.
Awesome. So definitely take the quiz. It was very interesting and insightful. I was like, okay, like maybe that's where I need to be. And just kind of figuring out. Thank you so much, Christy, for just sharing your wisdom and knowledge with us today. And I know that you have educated someone and just helped someone to kind of give them hope in the dating process. Because I know that even in my own process, it can kind of be like you're learning as you go, and changing your tactics for that. So thank you so much.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Thank you for having me.
So thank you for joining us and listening to this conversation. I hope you got something out of it and we're encouraged. And girl, I get it, how it can be, but at the same time, we're learning and growing as we go. So make sure to subscribe to this podcast, tag us, and share with a friend at Elizabeth Sabi. And I will see you guys next week.